It all started at a family dinner, a place where I thought we could finally have a peaceful evening together. I remember sitting there, hoping for a warm night, maybe even a hint of closeness that had been missing for so long. But that hope was short-lived. My mom looked at me and said, "It's for those who actually contribute." My sister just smirked, and I felt something inside me break. I managed to say, "Thanks for the honesty," before leaving, but those words were just a cover for the storm of emotions raging inside me. I went home, and the first thing I did was shut down the payment portal. I blocked every linked device. There was a certain satisfaction in taking back control, in cutting off the access they had to my resources. It was like reclaiming a part of myself that had been given away too freely for too long. At 5:17 a.m., my brother texted me, saying they couldn't board the flight and asked me to call the airline. I ignored it. I was done being their safety net, done being the one they could rely on without a second thought. The call started coming in soon after, but I didn't answer. I let them ring, each one feeding the anger that had been simmering for years. It was a rage I had never felt before, not even when my sister crashed my car and shrugged it off, or when my mom opened a credit card in my name when I was just a teenager. Even when my dad told me to toughen up after losing my job during the pandemic, I hadn't felt this level of betrayal. But that dinner, that smug, orchestrated dinner, was the final straw. They had chosen their usual spot, a fancy place with white tablecloths and an atmosphere they adored, not for the food, but for the image it projected. I arrived on time, dressed decently, hoping for a nice evening. My mom greeted me as if she hadn't ignored my calls. My sister barely acknowledged me, and my brother's nod felt more like a gesture between colleagues than siblings. My dad's smile was tight, the kind he wore when preparing to say something unpleasant. Dinner began normally, with bread and wine, but I could feel the tension building. My mom complained about airport security, even though her flight wasn't for another day. We laughed at something my brother said, and for a brief moment, it felt like family. But then the mood shifted. My mom waited until the pasta arrived to drop the bombshell. "It's for those who actually contribute," she said, looking at my sister. Silence followed. My sister smirked, my brother's shoulders tensed, and my dad wiped his mouth casually, as if this was just another day. My sister added, "Just be happy we told you all," without even looking at me. I realized then that this had been planned, rehearsed even. It wasn't just an offhand comment, it was a declaration. I wasn't really part of the family. I was the bank, the one they could step over as long as I kept footing the bill. The Italy trip was supposed to be a family bonding experience, my idea to bring us closer after years apart. I planned everything, spent nearly $30,000 from my savings. The unspoken agreement was that I'd get some of it back, but their plan was to go without me. They decided I wasn't ambitious enough, that I didn't understand what it meant to build a future. All of this whispered behind my back, then dropped on me casually like it was no big deal. I paid the bill, as always, and left without a word. When I got home, I didn't scream or rage. I sat down and canceled everything: the flights, the hotels, the car rentals. I managed to recover about 80% of the expenses, losing $6,000 in the process. But it was worth it to avoid being humiliated across the Atlantic. I revoked their access to my travel app, blocked their emails, and finished around 3 a.m. At 5:17, my brother's text came, but I was already done with them. In the days that followed, I received more calls, more messages, but I didn't respond. I knew what they wanted, what they were going to say, and I wasn't interested in hearing any of it. I had spent too long being the one who fixed everything, who made sure everyone else was okay while ignoring my own needs. It was time to put myself first, to stop being the one who was always there for a family that didn't truly value me. And while it hurt, while it felt like I was losing something important, I also felt free for the first time in a long time. At 6 in the morning, my phone buzzed with missed calls from my family. 5 from my mom, 2 from my dad, and 3 from my sister. There was a single text from my dad that read, "What did you do?" By 8:10, another call came through and I answered. My dad's voice was cold and final. "You're out of the apartment. I want you out by next week." And then he just hung up. I stood there, surrounded by the quiet of what had been my home for 2 years. Technically, the apartment was theirs, and I paid them $1,000 each month to live there. Sure, it was less than the market rate, but in exchange, I was micromanaged like a teenager. They controlled the AC, decided who could visit, and even what furniture was acceptable. But next week, that was not going to happen. I began packing right then and there. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel afraid. I felt liberated. I didn't reply to his call or the message. I simply started packing, slowly and deliberately, not out of fear, but because I wanted to remember this moment. I wanted to remember every item I packed, every drawer I emptied, every piece of clothing I folded, each one a reminder of the life I was leaving behind. They wanted me out by next week, but I planned to be gone in 2 days. It wasn't even noon, and I had already boxed up half the kitchen and sorted through 3 bags of clothes. By 3 p.m., I found a listing online for a furnished one-bedroom in a quiet part of town. The guy renting it had just taken a job in Canada and needed someone immediately. I messaged him, and he called within 10 minutes. After a quick video tour and a Venmo transfer, the place was mine for the next 6 months. Just like that. No co-signed lease, no dad to approve, no questions about why I needed a second pillow. The next morning, they came over. I was on the floor, taping a box shut when I heard the knock. I knew it was them. I didn't even need to look. I opened the door, and there they were, my mom holding a plastic container of Danish pastries like this was some kind of family brunch, and my dad behind her, hands in his pockets, staring at the floor. I could hear my sister on speakerphone through my mom's bag. My mom said they'd been thinking, and maybe they were a bit hasty. My dad said I was clearly in a bad place emotionally, and they were willing to forgive and move past it if I stopped acting irrationally. It took everything in me not to laugh. Irrational? Because I stopped funding their trip to Europe? Because I didn't let them humiliate me and still pick up the tab? My sister's voice chimed in from the phone, saying I was acting hostile, blowing up years of family over one mistake. That word, drama, was the last straw. I told them the truth, all of it. I laid out every little moment that had been festering inside me for years, not just about the Italy trip, but everything. The time I took out a loan for Dad's back surgery because insurance wouldn't cover it, the times I canceled plans because Mom guilt-tripped me about being absent, the times I paid my sister's rent because her roommate bailed. Years of giving and never receiving so much as an apology. They didn't get to call it drama now or pretend to be confused. My mom muttered something about rewriting history, and my dad said I should calm down before burning all my bridges. Too late for that. I told them I was moving out in 2 days. No, they didn't need to worry about rent. No, I didn't need their help. No, I wasn't coming to Sunday dinner. No, I didn't want to hear from them. And then I shut the door. They didn't come back that night or the next. 2 days later, I moved. The new apartment was small and a little beat up, but light streamed through the windows, the neighbors didn't know my name, and I could breathe. I left no forwarding address. I owed them nothing. For the first time in years, I felt like a whole person, not just a wallet with a pulse or a backup plan, just Julia. I thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't. The first week in the new apartment felt surreal. I'd wake up expecting the familiar sounds of my family, but instead, it was quiet. When I first moved into my own place, I expected the usual barrage from my family. Passive-aggressive texts, reminders about family unity, or requests to do things like take out the trash, even though I hadn't lived with them for years. But instead, there was just silence, and that silence was what I didn't realize I needed until I had it. I took my time filling my space, bought a cheap couch off Facebook Marketplace, set up my desk by the window, and treated myself to a secondhand espresso machine because I could. Every choice was mine. There was no one hovering, no one questioning why I needed something, no one trying to guilt me over my priorities. A week and a half after moving, I received an email. The subject line said, "Please call us. It's urgent." It was from my mom. I deleted it without opening it. An hour later, another email came from my dad. "We need to talk. It's important. Please don't ignore us." I muted the thread, but I couldn't resist checking their social media. My sister's Instagram had gone silent. My brother had stopped checking in at the gym. My mom hadn't posted a single cat meme in days, which for her was like a silent plea for help. Then the third email arrived, this time from my brother's account. "Hey, something happened. Please just call me." I didn't call. I sat with the email for a few hours, pondering whether someone was seriously hurt. And for a moment, that old guilt creeped back in, the reflex they had ingrained in me that made everything feel like my responsibility. Ignoring them made me feel like a bad daughter, a bad sister, a heartless person. But that moment passed. By the time curiosity got the better of me and I opened the email, it was already outdated. The content was vague, as if they feared explaining the full situation over text. But the tone said enough. Something went wrong. Something big. 2 days later, I found out what it was. My family didn't tell me. My cousin Derek did. Apparently, the airline never refunded the taxes on the non-refundable leg of their trip. The hotel in Rome charged a cancellation fee buried in the fine print. And they hadn't followed through with the travel insurance claim because none of them had actually read the policy I bought. The total out-of-pocket loss was almost $8,000. Worse, my dad had charged a chunk of it to a card he was already behind on. The bank froze his account after a missed payment, and my sister's tuition reimbursement from her job fell through. Their trip, which never happened, still managed to financially wreck them. Karma's timing was impeccable. That's when the begging started. The calls picked back up, voicemails with my dad stammering about needing to talk, my mom crying, my sister saying it had gone too far and they were all suffering. I listened to all of it, but didn't answer a single call. Then, on a Tuesday morning, my mom called 5 times in a row, and the last voicemail changed everything. She sobbed, saying that if I didn't help them now, I wasn't their daughter anymore. I played that message twice, sitting there staring at the wall as it sank in. "You're not our daughter anymore." It was meant to guilt me, to manipulate me, but it didn't hurt the way they thought it would. It felt pathetic, desperate, empty. I didn't reply. 2 months passed, and I started to feel like I had a rhythm again. Grocery runs, work, friends, peace. I was sleeping better, looked healthier, and people noticed. Then one afternoon, something stopped me in my tracks. I was walking to get lunch and saw my dad's car. Except it wasn't my dad driving it. A week later, my cousin sent me a screenshot. They had sold the car. Seeing my dad's car listed on Facebook Marketplace, something shifted in me. I wasn't surprised they sold it. They always put pride above planning. But what caught me off guard was how fast it had all crumbled. Just 2 months since the cancellation, and they were already letting go of what used to be his most prized possession. That car was his identity, his throne, his statement to the world. Now it was just a teenager's first ride, probably filled with fast food wrappers and forgotten dreams. I remember the day like it was yesterday. The air was thick with vape smoke and the echo of regrettable decisions. I thought that was the end of their spiral, but I was wrong. Just a week later, I returned from a mundane grocery trip to find someone waiting at my door. Hoodie up, sunglasses on, backpack slung over one shoulder. For a fleeting moment, I mistook him for a neighbor. Then recognition hit me. It was my brother. I hadn't heard from him since that chaotic night. His last message was from the airport, sent with a frenetic urgency. Now he appeared without warning, as if we were characters in a sitcom, about to resolve everything over a couple of beers. He didn't pause for an invitation, just brushed past me, made himself comfortable on the edge of my couch, and got straight to the point. They needed help. I leaned against the wall, bracing myself for what I knew would be a difficult conversation. It seemed things had deteriorated further. Their savings had evaporated, credit cards frozen, and the bank had begun sending ominous warnings. My mom's work hours had been cut. My sister, the one who was supposed to be successful, was embroiled in some HR investigation at her company, something about misuse of a corporate card. He spared me the details, and I didn't press for them. Then he dropped the bombshell. They were behind on the mortgage, the very same mortgage they had always dangled over my head like a trophy. The apartment they let me stay in for $1,000 a month, always reminding me of how fortunate I was. Now it teetered on the brink, 2 months overdue. Notices from the bank had already arrived. I remained silent. He reached into his backpack and produced an envelope with the gravity of revealing a hidden treasure. Inside were bank statements, a drafted repayment contract, a formal request for a $10,000 loan to stabilize their situation. The envelope was filled with bullet points, signatures, interest rates, as if we were business partners, not family. I took a moment to digest it, then looked at him. A contract, after everything we'd been through. He said they wanted to prove their sincerity, that this wasn't just another plea for a handout. I didn't laugh or yell. I simply got up, walked to the kitchen, retrieved 2 glasses of water, placed one in front of him, sat down with mine, and waited. He started filling the silence with apologies and excuses, claiming they were stressed, that their words weren't meant the way they sounded, that my mom didn't mean it when she said I wasn't their daughter. I just listened. Then I spoke, calmly and plainly. No. He blinked, as if I were speaking in a foreign tongue. No, I'm not helping. Not this time. He sat there for a long moment, then said something that lingered with me. If you don't help them, this could get really bad. I told him it already had. And with that, I walked to the door. He didn't argue, just stood up, muttered something about figuring it out, and left. That night, a voicemail from my mom greeted me. Her voice trembled. They shouldn't have said I wasn't their daughter. They were angry, scared, but I didn't care anymore. I deleted it without a second thought. It didn't matter whether they meant it or not, it was their truth. To them, I was only family as long as I was useful, otherwise I was expendable. 3 days later, something blindsided me. An email from my credit monitoring service, a fraud alert. Someone had tried to take out a payday loan in my name, a $3,500 online application using my old address, using my name. But it was blocked because I'd frozen my credit months ago after I moved. A precaution I took back then, never imagining it would be them. I requested a copy of the application. Everything matched. My name, birth date, social security number. This wasn't the work of a hacker. It was someone who already had my information. Someone I once lived with. They never admitted it. Never even acknowledged it. But I knew. For the first time, I didn't feel like their daughter anymore. I felt like a target. There was no confrontation. There was no point. If they were willing to exploit my identity for a loan, whatever remained of our relationship wasn't worth salvaging. I filed a report, tightened my credit security further, added alerts with the bureaus, and moved forward quietly without any drama. They never understood that part. Cutting someone off doesn't require a grand gesture or a dramatic scene. For a long while, every interaction with my family seemed to come with some kind of emotional explosion. Sometimes it was yelling. Other times it was the cold shoulder, a locked door, and silence. After a while of this, things went quiet. No more messages, no more calls. I dared to hope they had finally come to terms with my decision to step away. But just when I started to relax, a message from my cousin Lena shattered the calm. She'd sent me a screenshot, no text, just an image. It was a Facebook post from my mom. She'd tagged a good portion of the family and wrote something cryptic and hurtful. Some people pretend to be family until you need them. Some people pretend to love you until you're no longer useful. But that's okay. God sees everything. The comments underneath were plentiful and loaded with thinly veiled accusations. People wrote things like, "So sorry, Marie, you don't deserve that," and "Some people forget who raised them. God will handle it." Then my direct messages started lighting up. Aunts, uncles, even my grandma reached out. They were all confused, asking what had happened between me and my mom, saying I needed to fix it because family is all you've got. I ignored most of them, but when Uncle Jeff called, I answered. It wasn't a voicemail, it was a real call. He asked me point blank what had happened. So I told him everything. I laid it all out. The Italy trip that never happened, the eviction mess, the manipulative behavior, the attempt to rope me into a payday loan. I hadn't shared these things before, thinking that keeping quiet might eventually lead to reconciliation. I didn't sugarcoat anything. He listened without interrupting, and when I was done, there was a pause. Then he simply said, "Jesus Christ, Julia." He told me they hadn't heard any of that. Later that day, my cousin Derek messaged me. He'd called my mom after seeing the Facebook post. He said she tried to twist the conversation, painting me as unstable and dangerous. But by then, most of the family had heard my side, and they weren't buying her story. Gradually, the comments under her post started disappearing. The post itself was gone the next day. But then came the real kicker. My mom messaged me, not to apologize, not to express any regret. She just said, "I hope you're happy. You've turned everyone against us." I stared at the message for a bit, then I replied with one sentence. "Now, you did that all by yourself." After sending it, I blocked her. For the first time in years, I didn't feel any guilt. After blocking her, I thought things might finally calm down. I thought maybe that was the end of it, the last desperate attempt to strike out. But I should have known my family better. Silence isn't their way. If they couldn't control me, they'd try to control how others perceived me. 3 days later, I woke up to a flood of notifications. My mom had made another Facebook post. This one was the dramatic kind with black and white text on a background, the kind that screams victim from a mile away. It read, "He's not mentally well. Please pray for my son. We're heartbroken, but doing our best. Some things are beyond our control." She didn't mention my name, but everyone knew who she was referring to. Just to make sure there was no doubt, she commented under her own post with an old photo of me at 12, smiling at a family picnic. I felt physically ill. Then the calls started coming in. First my grandma, then Anna, and then some distant cousin I hadn't heard from in years. They were worried. They'd heard I was on a downward spiral, that I might be unwell, that I'd lost touch with reality. Some even asked if I was on drugs. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. Then something truly unexpected happened. One of my mom's old coworkers, Cheryl, reached out. I barely remembered her, but she said she'd always thought I was polite and she wanted to give me a heads up. Apparently, my mom had been crying at work, claiming I was cutting myself off, making threats, and that she feared for my safety and theirs. She even suggested she might file for a restraining order against me. That stopped me cold. I hadn't done anything. No calls, no visits, no threats, not even a single message since I'd left. But she was planting seeds, creating just enough fear, just enough uncertainty. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about money anymore. This whole situation was about control. They couldn't shame me into helping them, nor could they guilt me into coming back. So their next move was to isolate me, one relationship at a time. I was furious, but then something happened that I never expected. Uncle Jeff, the same uncle I had always confided in, posted a status that afternoon. It was public, with my full name tagged and written in bold letters. He wrote about how difficult it was to watch people rewrite history just to protect themselves. He said he was proud of his niece for finally setting boundaries, and he added that maybe if more of us had done that sooner, things might have been different. His post went viral within our family group. Everyone saw it. Some relatives messaged me privately to apologize. Others shared their own stories of how they had also been manipulated. It turns out I wasn't the only one my parents had pressured over the years. I was just the first one to push back this hard. Then came the final surprise. My dad emailed me. No subject, no greeting, just a single line. "You've embarrassed this family enough. We're blocking you." That was it. No apology, no attempt at reconciliation, just one last pathetic attempt to regain power. And I let them do it because by that time they weren't my family anymore, just people I used to know. It's been a little over a month since I received that last message from my dad, the one where he said I'd embarrassed the family and that they were blocking me. I never replied, and I didn't need to. That was the last thread cut, the final bit of noise. After that, everything just stopped. For the first time in my life, there's no tension when I check my phone, no panic when I open my inbox, no obligation weighing down every weekend. Just silence and freedom. Life's not glamorous, but it feels real. I still live in a small apartment with cabinets that don't close properly and a faucet that hisses like a snake every morning. I still eat frozen dumplings way more often than I should, but I can breathe here. I can leave dishes in the sink. I can watch a movie at 2 a.m. without someone knocking on my door, asking why the lights are still on. A couple of weeks ago, I bought a tiny used dining table and assembled it myself. I didn't call anyone for help, didn't ask for approval, just did it. Every screw went in crooked, but it stands. That table means more to me than anything I left behind in their apartment. I got a cat, Olive. She's a troublemaker. She knocks things off counters for fun, screams at nothing at 4 a.m, follows me around like she's making sure I don't mess up again. I think she understands me. Work has been stable, actually better than before. Without the constant emotional drain, I've been sharper, more creative. I even started freelancing on the side and landed a couple of decent clients. I'm finally building a savings account that no one else has access to. I've heard from a few extended relatives since. Some apologized. Some admitted they'd always suspected something wasn't right with how my parents treated me. One of my cousins even thanked me. She said watching me stand up for myself gave her the push to finally move out of her toxic house too. My parents haven't heard a word from me. I don't miss them. Not because I hate them, I'm just tired of performing the role they wrote for me. The good daughter, the reliable one, the walking wallet, the buffer between their chaos and the rest of the world. I still think about them sometimes, especially late at night. I wonder if they regret any of it, if they sit in that now silent apartment wondering what they could have done differently. Probably not, but that's not my concern anymore. Here's what I've learned. When people say family is forever, they're not wrong. But sometimes the family you're born into isn't the one you're meant to keep. Sometimes you build your own with the friends who check in, the neighbor who invites you over for board games, the cat who curls up on your chest when you can't sleep. I thought I'd feel empty without them. Instead, I feel full, whole, even. And for the first time in years, I'm not trying to get back what I lost. I'm finally building what I never had. I used to think I needed their approval, that I needed to fit into their mold of who I should be. But now I realize I don't need that. I am enough as I am. And I'm learning to love the person I've become. It's not easy, but it's worth it. This journey of self-discovery, of finding my own voice, it has been both painful and liberating. And I'm grateful for every step that led me here.